Hello, everyone. Do you remember Melinda Epler?
It was my dream job, a culmination of all the skills that I've acquired over the years: storytelling, social impact, behavior change. I was the head of marketing and culture, and I work with the nation's largest healthcare systems, using technology and culture change to radically reduce their energy and water use and to improve their social impact. I was creating real change in the world. And it was the worst professional experience of my life.
Well, I sure remember Melinda, and if you want to find out what terrible circumstances caused her to have the worst professional experience of her life, please watch my previous video on Melinda, which will be linked at the end of this video. But that aside, Miss Epler, through her company Change Catalyst, recently moderated a panel discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And just because I'm a mental masochist, always clawing for new information on how diversity and inclusion are shaping our world from areas you usually don't hear from, let's take a look at some of what these change makers had to say.
Well, let's start by saying who you are, what your role is, and then just in one sentence, why diversity and inclusion really matters to you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion really matters to you.
A single sentence. That's all that they get? Well, given how much hot air is usually expelled by those signaling their virtue or airing their identity politics, I'd be very surprised if one sentence is going to be enough.
My name is Margie Lee Johnson. I am the Vice President of People at Checker. And diversity and inclusion matters because we believe, and I personally believe, that cognitive diversity, meaning that all of our life experiences that are shaped by who we are important to being an innovative and creative company.
That is an entirely reasonable sentiment, all on its own. Diversity of thought is an advantage in business. A point to Margie Lee Johnson. Next.
My name is Natalie Villalobos. On Twitter, you'll also start seeing that I'm starting to go by Natalia because I feel like Natalie is my girl name and Natalia is my woman name, and I'm just going to start owning that.
Natalie is your girl name. Natalia is your woman name. And you're going to start owning that. Wow. How self-empowering that you're acknowledging that you're an adult. Now, I guess?
So it's my love language.
I'll practice it, Natalia.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can just say Natalia too.
Natalia. Okay.
And I run Women's Tech Makers at Google, which is our global outreach program for women in tech. So I'm focusing on all the women outside of Google.
Women heck makers? Is that the Ned Flanders version of Hellraisers? Oh, tech makers. My bad.
I also run diversity and inclusion for our developer relations organization. And I would say diversity, equity, inclusion, for me, especially matters for women and underrepresented people. I would say my lens on it is that it needs to be a global effort. I think oftentimes when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're primarily focusing on the United States. So the bulk of my work is actually focused on everywhere outside of the United States. And so that perspective of what does it mean to be underrepresented, marginalized around the world is something that is deeply important to me, regardless of gender, socioeconomic background, race, and the like.
So you oversee women tech makers and are trying to get women into tech, but you are ambivalent about diversity in tech when it comes to gender around the world. Got it.
I'm Leslie. I am a Vice President of Engineering in the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Organization. I'm specifically, I do user and developer experience. So this is all of our web console and our developer tools, and there's a couple of services, all of the product documentation, anything that a user needs in order to use our cloud. And the reason I'm here is in the past 4 years, I joined this team when it was about 40 people. And in the past 4 years, we have scaled out to over 5,000 people. So that's a lot of scale in 4 years. And yet I look around and I don't see myself. I don't see people like me. I don't see people like you. I am lonely.
I'm so lonely.
You are lonely because you don't see people like yourself, because you don't see people like those on stage. You have gone from 40 people to 5,000 people, but you remain lonely and dissatisfied because the people who have joined your group are not of the right look. So, is our speaker sexist? Or racist? Or ableist? Or all of the above? I really have no idea. All I know is this person feels as though she is adrift in a sea of unappealing human aesthetics. One can only wonder what lengths she is willing to go to in order to fix this problem that she has.
So that's why I'm here, to learn and to get some ideas about how we can do better as we even continue to grow even more.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. She just denigrated and devalued everyone involved in your event. Got it.
Trier Bryant, I am the VP of People and Places at SigFig. We're a fintech company that builds digital advice products, financial tools. And so I'm here, and this work is so important to me because, you know, I was previously in the military. I served 7 years active duty in the Air Force. And it was so important to me, not only ingrained growing up, but also while I was in the military, that, you know, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so whether it was Tuskegee Airmen or Marcelette Harris, which was the first black woman general in the Air Force who actually just passed last fall in 2018, I saw what they did to open doors so that it could be better for me, and I feel like, you know, it's my responsibility to do that forward in whatever industry or space that, you know, I choose to be in professionally or even in my personal life. And, you know, I feel like this work started for me at a very young age. I remember I started going to private school when I was in 6th grade. Westminster School in Atlanta, and I was one of 2 black kids in my class, and it didn't feel good. So we started doing stuff to get other people to look like us. So I feel like, you know, been in the game for a while. And it's just, even I think at that age, you realize that, you know, you don't see people that look like you. And so now just continuing to do that here in tech.
Awesome. Beautiful.
It really is about appearances, isn't it? You're not comfortable unless people are emulating you or centering your likes and dislikes. The people around you are imperfect to your visual feng shui unless you approve of their exterior. Got it.
So we have all been working on diversity and inclusion for some time. And one of the things that I have learned, something that I have learned over the years is that for me, it falls into 3 main buckets. It falls into people, it falls into processes, and it falls into power. And when we were prepping for this panel, power is what lit up all of you in different ways. And so let's start with that.
People, processes, and power. They didn't get excited over people. They didn't get excited over processes. They all lit up over the notion of power. Got it.
How does power play a role? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so last week I was actually at a Latinas at Google event.
So, an event for people based on their race and gender. Tell me about your valuing inclusion again.
And I was talking with Felicia Butterfield Jones, who's a dear friend and an advocate who's doing great work inside and outside of Google. And we were talking about how vital it is to understanding the power that we have, in the sense that to make radical change, I think, within a company, within an organization, even with the work that I'm doing outside of Google, what power do I have and how do I assess that? And what risk am I willing to take, or what risk are people willing to support me in taking with that power? So I think just for me, trying to do an assessment of where is power being taken away from my decision making.
By your superiors in the company? And or the limits of your job description? Maybe?
Where can people give me more in the sense of resources or advocacy? And I want to leave more time for this because I want to hear everyone else's power explanations. But I think for me right now, when I'm looking across my organization internally and externally, my job is to ensure that everyone has power to, whether that's going to be, again, around decision making, and get people out of the way that are taking it away from others. Remove roadblocks, increasing access is a huge part of my job, and where I'm willing to step into hard places and making other people feel uncomfortable so that others can have more space.
Give everyone power and get people out of the way that are taking it away from others. So, in the hierarchical nature of just about any company or corporation, not everyone can have power. Maybe they have power within their own sphere, but seeking power beyond that would be, well, someone else's job. Regardless, giving power and taking power are such abstract concepts. I think our speaker has ensured that her job, whatever it is, can never be defined, and thus she can never be accused of not doing it. It's a job security of a kind, I suppose. The silence is deafening.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So
I'll just leave the silence until somebody jumps in.
It'll happen. So for Checker, we are a company that enables other companies to hire quickly. And I want to give you a little bit of story because I think Checker is a mission-driven company, and it was kind of organic in terms of how we came to that conclusion. And we basically enable companies to run background checks. And very early on, so we're 5 years old, our founders, as most founders do in this room, you can attest to that, is you kind of do everything. And they were answering calls from candidates who were being excluded from consideration because of some type of conviction history or they were justice impacted. And our two founders are two French guys, immigrated to the United States, and I thought they didn't realize that the company that they created was impacting people's ability to get jobs in that way. And they felt like some of these conviction histories really should not basically be a impacting factor in a hiring decision.
Shouldn't that be left to the judgment of the potential employer? Yeah, I don't know where this story is going, but that was my reflex reaction.
So they started getting together with these folks that they knew were being excluded from employment, hearing their stories, and we became a mission-driven company, and we are fair chance advocates. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, as a company, we really wanted to think about our product differently from our competitors. So not only did we disrupt the background checking industry, we're fundamentally changing the way that employers consume and look at conviction histories as they're making hiring decisions. So not only are we fair chance advocates, and not only do we think about fair chance as we're building our product, we are also fair chance employers.
Okay, well, I can support that notion. So long as a potential employer is getting all of the information, and if they're only being given context enough to make an informed decision, then that's fine. I am not against someone being given a chance, even if they do have a criminal history, at the employer's discretion, of course.
Of course!
It is very difficult to show that you have paid your debt to society as a person or practice our belief in reform as a society if someone is barred from making an honest living after serving their time. So, another point to Margie Lee Johnson.
Yeah, I think power also needs to be distributed in a lot of ways, right?
Right?
So I think that there's this model of, the power lies, yes, with the C-suite, with SVPs, with VPs. I'm just kind of like going down a management chain. I think when we're looking at women tech makers, as an example, we have 785 advocates around the world. They're called Women Tech Makers Ambassadors. And I think so much of what we can do as organizations is to give that power away. So I want to, connect and celebrate with those women all around the world and think about what is the power that they need.
That is a lot of female-centric concern. Now, what did you say just a couple of minutes ago?
And so that perspective of what does it mean to be underrepresented, marginalized around the world is something that is deeply important to me, regardless of gender, socioeconomic background, race, and the like.
Regardless of gender. Got it.
Because to me, I think that yes, we as organizations are doing it from like a top-down perspective, both internally and externally, but also I want to fuel the grassroots, right?
Right?
Like the best ideas don't always exist here within me or here within my organization. It's going to be with the women that are on the ground, regardless of gender. And so ensuring that whatever we can do, whether it's building new structures, building process, offering budget, offering resources, whatever it is, like that fuel from that bottom up, I think is going to be where we're going to see the greatest ecosystem change.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Totally. It sounds like women will be leading the charge for the revolution, wherein everyone in a company shares power equally and every company will become a worker's paradise. I think I may have heard about something like that before. It's okay. Take your time. We know that you're lonely up there.
So lonely.
I can honestly say, my North Star in terms of leadership has always been that I want to create the kind of environment that I want to actually spend my precious time in.
So, one in which everyone looks like you. Got it.
And that is a diverse environment.
That is actually the opposite of what you were wishing for earlier. Because going from 40 to 5,000 people still has you unsatisfied with the people in the room since they do not look like you. But, hey, what do I know? I'm only listening to your words.
And so what you said about the ideas don't all have to come from you, amen, because mostly they don't.
Mostly you take them from other people? Mostly no woman is an island? I'm not exactly sure what the revelation is here.
Mostly, I think power is about setting up the situations in which you can kind of crowdsource that deeper wisdom that everybody has, and the more diverse your team is,
It's more cultivating.
Correct. The more the more rich what they bring is.
I think you just described a relatively common aspect of leadership, bringing people together to get something done. And this, again, is this some sort of newfound idea for you or something?
So for me, power is, it's less something to kind of crave and hold on to. Mm-hmm. It's more something that allows me to create environments where everyone can take a share in that power. So it's a very different. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a more female view of power.
But
it is definitely not the predominant sort of corporate model of power that we think of. I'm much stronger because of my team than if I were just me alone.
Yeah.
You all work for corporations, but your thinking is more female than that because you've just discovered what being a leader is and that a team is stronger than an individual. And you're lonely.
So lonely.
Got it.
And I was just going to say, so power is interesting, and I was thinking about that when we were talking about it in the prep call, and being in the position as the VP of People and Places, the facilities and everything, I'm sitting in the position that I pushed and tried for so long in my career to have influence to make decisions for more equity, for more equality, and to now be the person that has the power to make those decisions. And I never really looked at it from that perspective, but a couple of things. When I started at my company, my CEO, who's an Asian male.
Your CEO is an Asian male. Got it.
He said, what do you think about the people? We just have great, nice people here. And I was like, yeah, it's interesting. This is the nicest that people have ever been to me, on a consistent basis. And he was like, we have great people. And I said, I think it's also because I control the things that people care most about, right?
So you're assuming everyone around you is disingenuous, saying what you want to hear because of your relative power over them. Got it. Also, what does your CEO being an Asian male have to do with anything again?
I care about, people care about their comp, and people care about, their environment of coming into their workplace. And quite frankly, at our company, people really care about the flavor of the LaCroix water that we have, right?
Right?
Yeah. So, and that's all of my responsibility. But I think the other part of that power as well is that I got feedback from my CEO. He was like, hey, what are we doing about diversity and inclusion efforts? You've been here for about 4 months now, but I haven't seen any initiatives. But little did they know, and of course, I consider myself to be a practitioner in this space. Everything that we've done, everything that I've implemented since I've been there, it's ingrained in it. And so it doesn't have to be this very, loud and say, oh, we're changing this model because we're thinking about diversity. We're just doing it. I'm just doing, our team is doing it. I got people from my team here. We just do it.
So 4 months into a job, and your boss hasn't seen you doing anything as pertains to your job, and your response is, oh, we're just doing it. Wow, that's an awfully cavalier attitude to take, not presenting any kind of plans to your superiors and acting without their knowledge, or input, or oversight. Got it.
And so it was just interesting, and I appreciate you asking that question because it allowed me to have a different perspective of that is power and how I'm using that to have that impact and change.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yes, awesome. Awesome. A type of attitude that just screams teamwork, acting without permission or authority. Yes, well, there you have it. A little insight on corporate power from a panel of diversity and inclusion leaders, only one of which seems to actually be operating on the true definitions of diversity and inclusion, that being Margie Lee Johnson. The rest? Well, we have the female supremacist who doesn't care about gender.
Regardless of gender.
We have the former member of the Air Force who doesn't care about chain of command. And we have the
So lonely.
vice president of engineering who only recently seems to have discovered the idea of leadership and teamwork, while rejecting kinship with anyone who does not look like she does.
This team when it was about 40 people, and in the past 4 years we have scaled out to over 5,000 people. So that's a lot of scale in 4 years. And yet I look around and I don't see myself. I don't see people like me. I don't see people like you. I am
So ornery.
Yes, a snapshot of diverse thinking in the upper echelons of today's corporate world. Look upon their wokes, ye mighty, and despair. All except for Margie Lee Johnson. As always, thank you for watching.